You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
Welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as today your Indiana Hoosiers defeat South Carolina by the score of 87-71, moving Indiana's record to 3-0 on the season, as they have one more before they head to the Bahamas. I'm your host, the coach Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with Coach Bob Moats, and we'll break it down for you. Indiana got off to a great start, Coach, at 17-4. I really like their start, and then South Carolina's a pesky team. They battled back a couple times. Indiana took an 11-point lead at half, come out in the second half, and there was a little bit of a lull. And then towards the end, Indiana got up 18. Lead got back down to 8. So a little seesaw runs. It's a game of runs. But Indiana was able to salt away the 16-point victory, which will help their resume going down towards March. This was a SEC school who was in the tournament last year. They were favored by 7. They win by 16. That is good news for your Indiana Hoosiers. But let's start the show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moments.
And Indiana is the national champion.
When it comes down, Indiana will be champion.
Martin takes the shot.
The Hoosiers have won the national championship.
The banner moment for me, Coach, was early on when Carlisle comes off a high ball screen and throws to the right wing to Miles Rice on a catch-and-shoot three that was nothing but net. That was sandwiched between two outstanding fast break opportunities for Indiana that they converted on and got out to a quick start in two areas that I think Indiana needs to do throughout the season. That is score in transition and hit the three. And it was really nice to see Carlisle on the ball coming off of ball screens, and that just set the tone. In a game where the post play struggled today, whether it's the defense of South Carolina or just the overall play today, I thought the guards really did a good job. Our banner moment today, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 8th season, sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their 4th as presenting sponsor for Back Home Network. We'll get going here quickly. I won't read the whole ad. Connor, we love you. Home Field's everywhere. Buy some Home Field gear. I just got a couple items for my birthday. They have a 9 Windiana shirt, 10 Windiana shirt, soon to be 11 Windiana shirt. We really appreciate their support of the Assembly Call and the Back Home Network. So go to homefieldapparel.com. Use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. The website, again, is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. So I'm Coach Tonsoni. I'm down here in Assembly Hall. You hear the music playing in the background. I apologize if that clouds up our show today, but that'll go for a little while, and then it'll end, and we'll be able to talk some basketball. Jared had some family things come up, so we're testing this. I wasn't supposed to play the banner music, moment music, but I did. I got 4 apps open here at the top of Assembly Hall, so hang in there with us. But Coach Moats, it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts, and you're our man, and you're open. So, Coach Moats, what are your thoughts today on the 87-71 victory by the Indiana Hoosiers?
On a day where the athletic department announced they're going to spend $72 million over the next few years to retain Kurt Cignetti, a huge win like this is just a great, just caps off of what's been a great day for IU. I will say, yeah, I agree 100% with the guard play. And I think one of the notes I started with was on a day where Ballo and Renew ended the first half with, I think, 5 points total between the two of them. And IU still put up 40 and did so in a way where it was free-flowing, the ball was moving. After the first couple of possessions, the ball really didn't stick. They were looking to hit guys out of the post. That was one big thing that I think throughout the entire game. We're going to probably talk. We will talk about that as we go through this. But hitting guys out of the post or hitting guys off a dribble penetration. loved that the banner moment was that Carlisle to Rice for 3 on just that ball screen to penetrating kick. I don't have a possession number yet, but I do think that this was the pace of play that IU needs to play at, wants to play at, and it was the pace of play they needed to have in order to get a double-digit win against a team that, again, they were favored by 7, but the analytics sites had them at 6. This is a great resume-building win. They not only took care of business, they took care of business plus some, and that, as you know, as a bracketologist, you can't get too many of those over the course of a 31-game season.
Yeah, and I thought tonight Indiana's guards dictated both the pace of play on the offensive side and on the defensive side. The ball pressure throughout most of the game was incredible. And when you have ball pressure, you're going to get beat at times, and Balo cleaned up sometimes on those plays. But I thought Indiana really disrupted South Carolina defensively for the most part. Credit South Carolina. They scored at about 1 point per possession on offense because they hit some shots and they were real scrappy. But I thought the guards defensively and also in getting transition baskets, it just sets the tone. I thought that was really good. Your thoughts on Indiana's guard play defensively first, and then anything you want to add about guard play offensively?
Might have mentioned this in the chat, on the Discord for assembly on assembly call. I think in the past we've seen IU give up open looks from 3 at times because they've been overreacting on the help side of the ball. This time I felt like it was because they were in scramble mode, because they were putting a great deal of ball pressure, not just on the ball handler, but also putting pressure on the passing lanes. They were really being disruptive to a South Carolina team that likes to be, and again, Lamont Paris, Wisconsin guy, wants to play methodically, wants to really break you down defensively. And they may have given a couple up there, but I think they got more than they gave in disrupting South Carolina, taking them out of the play they wanted to do, the way they wanted to play. And really, in the first half, I mean, they locked down the paint, they locked down penetration. And although they gave up, although they locked down the perimeter a little better in the second half, and then gave up a little bit more in the paint in the second half, they hit the moles in whack-a-mole. And I think you and I both know from a tactical coaching standpoint that a lot of times the chess match is more whack-a-mole. Like, they pop up one area, you knock it down, and then when they pop up another, you have to be able to respond to hit it fast enough. If it stays up too much and you miss it, then that's when you get that 8-0 run that can get a team back in the game or can put you out of the game. And I felt like I used the guard pressure defensively, kept them in a position where they pretty much kept South Carolina after that initial run at arm's length and didn't allow them to claw back in, which is the only way with the way they're built, the only way they were going to get back into it. Offensively,
yeah, I thought. Let me comment
jump
on
in.
that. I thought it was really great until they were up 18, and then I thought, and that's natural too when you got a team and you're 18 with 5 or 6 minutes left, and I thought there for a couple possessions, it let up, and that's how a game got back down to 8, but then Indiana was able to salt it away. And you're going to have moments like that in a game. You want to coach to perfection, but it's never going to be perfect. I thought tonight, the whack-a-mole, and we pressured the basketball far more times than they got beat on penetration. And here at the game, too, you see the weak side rotations. Rice is really good at that nail slot rim at knowing when to stay and when not to stay and how quick he is getting out to the wing. And they gave up a couple of those, but not as many. And then Galloway had a really nice from one side to the other closeout on the baseline in rotation when guards beat and everyone kind of rotated over, and South Carolina was doing the one more passing around, and Galloway flew at a shooter, and I think he missed, or he had to shot fake and come in for 2. I know ball pressure has been an emphasis for Coach Woodson all summer long, and you're starting to see that throughout the game. Tucker comes in a great stance, Carlisle in great stances, and sometimes you can pick that up on TV. When you're up here, you can really see Tucker comes in, and again, I don't know his defensive stats and deflections, that awful word that was in Indiana, but it's important. And Miles Rice was just a pest today. Like, they were trying to get in the lane, and he knocked the ball free a couple times, and Galloway did as well. Those things cumulatively add up to wearing down a team. And when you're better, you're just physically and talented more talented than South Carolina. You add that kind of ball pressure, it wears you down. Back to you for your thoughts offensively.
Offensively, and I want to real quick just hit one other, because earlier in the game they did one of those around the horns. We got the one more, and Galloway was a little late. What it shows us is this team is adjusting, and they're learning from a mistake earlier in the game and then sealing that up. And that's something that, honestly, and you don't always look at you got to look at the last 8, 9, 10 years. IU has not always been great with that, and they're getting that this season. We're seeing more and more of it. Offensively, Miles Rice came out after the first couple of possessions, and just took the game over from a pace of play standpoint. And that set the tone of the way IU wanted to play. I mean, you mentioned the transition dunk to Mbako. Then Carlisle's able to get the kick, and then you just then you get the post feed that gets around the horn to Mbako, and that's all happening in about a 2-minute and 30-second period. If you don't have Miles Rice's ability to attack, or Cannon Carlisle's ability to attack the lane and the paint, those types of plays become a lot harder to make over the course of a 40-minute game. And because they can play, and they said on the broadcast, and I totally agree with this, they are able to play multiple ways. IU can. And that's critical in a game of college basketball where you're moving the help line, where you're changing your ball screen coverages, where you're doubling the post and you're going single coverage. And I like the way that this happened today, where the bigs weren't established on the first 2 sets. They flowed into getting up in transition. And by the end of the game, both Renew and Ballo started getting more looks and more opportunities to score the basketball, because now they've taken the double coverage away, and now those guys can shine in their matchups. So really, just from a strategic and tactical standpoint, that how the guards played really impacted how the rest of the game went, and again, keeping them off their game.
Let me ask you about post play, because we have 2 outstanding post players, and in a lot of games they're going to be the dominant force. Tonight they struggled with their back to the basket. The first 2 or 3 possessions, again, Indiana throws it in there, and then they're a little stagnant and they're not moving as well. And I know it's an emphasis to get it in there, but other times they put the post on the move, whether it be with the short roll or the Chicago action, whatever you call it, at the elbow, where then you can throw the alley-oop. And I thought at halftime, Ballo and Renew each had 1 basket each, and they were both off offensive rebounds, which are good. But it seemed tonight that they struggled. Do you think that Ballo and Renew are better when they're either getting a cross screen or a rip screen, diagonal rip screen into the post, where they're moving, catching the ball in the post, and then scoring, versus just throw it to them with their back to the basket, and the defense is, they let it go today, the real physical play? It seems to me Renew's better in that situation than Ballo with his back to the basket, but I think both of them are absolutely incredible when they're on the move, as opposed to just dump it in and let them go to work with the bully ball and the crab dribble. Your thoughts on the post play today?
1,000%. I kind of had that. I was noting it throughout the game on instances where they were not popping it down to that to a back to the basket traditional post move. I think I only saw the 3-2 alignment one time where they tried to do that sort of back and forth, as they call it, the buddy ball between the two. It ended up being a turnover right in the middle of an IU run, and they were able to recover from it. But I mean, getting downhill, getting the bigs downhill in those striking actions off of ball screens, or in particular just working the baseline. And you also saw other guys getting in the action, like Mackenzie Mbako making a 45 cut for a dunk somewhere in the game. You're seeing them really capitalizing on cuts. And I mean, per synergy, and I just got this up, IU was only they put the ball in the post 12 times out of 79 play clips, which for them is not what they're used to doing. But they did.
That's low, right?
That's low for IU. It's not in that sort of 20% range. It's more in that just above 10%. So it's closer to what the rest of where the median is in post play. But they did a wonderful job on getting cuts where they're scoring 1.16 points per possession off of cuts. doing better off of spot ups because they've got their guys or off the roll man because they've got the guy in movement and is putting pressure on the defense. So now the help dilemma is you're not just trying to cover kind of a spread, how Galloway will kind of spread it out, or some other players traditionally would spread it out. When Galloway's able to get downhill and attack the lane with them moving in, going in motion, or if they're attacking from the side like you're talking about, it's really hard to defend. And once they start packing the lane against Indiana, now there's the passing because of the way the guards are built, that we have wide open looks for guys like Mackenzie Mbako, Luke Goody, who will start hitting these like they're going out of style sooner rather than later. Kane and Carlisle out there. All those players, you're going to have different ways to just make the right read and hit the right guy in those situations. But it starts with that movement of that post player coming off that dribble or coming off of, again, some sort of cross screen, some sort of, even throwing like a UCLA screen and rolling to the baskets, things like that we're seeing them do more and more of. More of that Princeton. We talk about this a lot of time. That Princeton concept.
They didn't run that tonight.
No,
they didn't run a lot of that tonight at all.
But a lot of those sorts of cuts you're seeing,
right?
Because you run Princeton, you run those now in flow. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going with it. That
exactly.
You can do that.
Yeah, and I just think what's nice about today is when the first two possessions you want to go inside and it doesn't really work out, this team has other avenues to go to. And I thought they were really outstanding in transition. I thought they were really outstanding in their pick and roll game today. Rice coming off and hitting pull-up jumpers, pull-up threes. Carlisle came off and hit Rice, as I talked about earlier. I thought that part of their half-court execution was really good. But you mentioned cutting, and I want to save something for meaningful moments here in our second segment on the short roll cuts. But I thought Indiana, if I'm Coach Woodson and I'm in that film, and you watch the first 8-9 minutes, I don't think Indiana was cutting hard in their half-court offense when they're coming off screens or even basket cutting. To me, it looked 50 to 60% cuts. And I think that's going to be a point of emphasis, or should be a point of emphasis for Coach Woodson, because you're going to have to score in the half court in some of these games, maybe in the Bahamas or definitely in the Big Ten and absolutely in the NCAA tournament. You may not have all of the options that you have on the screen and roll game, or the transition game. And I just thought it got better when Galloway came in and Tucker, I thought. And then all of a sudden in the second half, you started seeing other people on off-ball cuts. I'm not talking about going downhill off a ball screen, because Rice is fast and Carlisle's fast, and they're going at speed there. But there's just that element that I think in that first half especially, I think Coach Woodson might want to clean up. Did you see that? Or
I did. And I think part of that, again, going back to the whack-a-mole we're talking about, I think – and in softening action, you oftentimes in those early parts of a possession where you're trying to move the defense, maybe get a switch, get them out of their help positions. You kind of saw them kind of going through the motions. As the game progressed and South Carolina started using different tags and different help schemes to try to slow down the penetration, that's when you see that 45 cut when a guy turns his back, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's Mbako. And he's got a layup, or there's those sorts of where they now know that it's a striking cut versus a softening cut. And I believe that you should cut hard regardless. At any time, a softening action can be a striking action. I mean, the reason my voice is like this, you would have heard me yelling that about 5 hours ago in a basketball practice with a bunch of 12-year-olds, that you have to go hard. But I also understand that it was an adjustment they made. It's a very subtle adjustment, but it's one that they figured out.
You can have change of pace. You can be slow into a cut, fast out of a cut. You don't have to go 100 miles an hour on everything. But you do have to, once you cut, you need to be all in for the passer, for the screener, for everyone, to make sure that you're executing. And I think that's something that Indiana's going to have to possibly clean up going forward. Before
you need it to pressure your defense. You need it to pressure the defense, and that's the thing. When you do it that way, the defense is pressured and can break.
All right, coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's victory over South Carolina, we'll point out some meaningful moments you might have missed, then go inside the numbers to highlight the most important stats from the game. You're listening to The Assembly Call. Stick with us.
What's up, y'all? It's Devontae Green giving you the green light to watch Assembly Call after every IU game. Just don't listen to their opinions about shot selection. Remember, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Go Hoosiers.
Thanks, Devontae. Appreciate that. But you're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm the host, Coach Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with Coach Bob Moats, and we're breaking down Indiana's 87-6. The scoreboard just went off. We won by 16, 87-71. So now it's time for meaningful moments that you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience Indiana University athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. That's HoosierTicketProject.org. I have just a couple, Coach, and we'll come back to you. I want to talk about that short roll with the baseline cut. Mbako got one and Tucker got one. I think they both scored or at least got fouled. I think that is part of that action of moving the post. And again, I think our post players are really good passers. I don't know that we saw a lot of it today, but in previous games we have seen Balo and Renew be able to really share the rock in good ways. And they do that when there's a high ball screen and they hit the short roll right at the big logo, and then you have a baseline cutter. And Tucker and Mbako are really good at reading when their defense turns their head to watch that action. They cut to the basket, and our bigs are really good at finding them. I like that action.
It's great action. And it's one of those things where I know some coaches will do that out of just a designed short roll. Other coaches will allow that out of a read. It just depends on, and I can't tell you one or the other. We'll call Adranya after this is over, and he can tell me that, because I think he would. I see it, whether it's designed or it's not. It doesn't really matter. The result's the same, which is whether they were connected enough on that. And it's also just giving that big man a chance to make a play in the middle. And it's like we talk about with zone offense, where you get the ball in the middle. At that point, a man functions like a zone, because now you're attacking a back line. And if they come up and take that away, that opens up the cut. If they don't, you have the open layup. And if they kind of in between it, they hedge it, then you may have an open jump shot for three. So much of this, I think, for IU is, plays like that where they now have perimeter players that can be multifaceted, multi-tooled, and can get up and turn that what becomes a highlight play. That becomes a highlight play. And that's something that, gets the fan base going, gets everybody rocking in the hall, but it's also just really good fundamental basketball.
My other meaningful moment, I caught it up here on Media Row with about 55 seconds to go, and Indiana's shooting free throws. Luke Goody is on the court, and he's going around and telling everyone with his hands and his voice. I couldn't hear him, but I see his hands about picking up. When you have an 8-9 point lead, you don't want people to roll the ball to half court and pick it up. You want to turn them 2 or 3 times. And there's a veteran player who's been in college, played a lot of basketball in high school, AAU, and understanding the game. And what that represents to me is a good teammate, but also a coach on the floor. And I think I saw Miles Rice earlier go over to Woodson and make a suggestion. When you have that kind of activity, leadership activity, where coaches don't have to think of everything and your players are helping out, I think that just speaks volumes. And more times than not, it'll work out for the benefit. And I don't know that the game was ever in a point of distress there down the stretch, but it's still attention to detail by a veteran player that really, really helps. And that when you're coaching and those kids can talk under the basket or huddle at the free throw line, those types of things really, really matter. And I was glad to see it, but it's something, again, that you might pick up outside of the TV cameras. If I were at home, I might not have saw that. So I like that from Luke Goody.
Real quick highlight on Luke Goody across the board. I don't think he scored a point today, but his presence on the court was felt every moment he was on there. He's getting on the floor. There was a scrum where there were like 6 guys on the floor, and he was right there in the middle of it. Rebounded the ball pretty well, defended well throughout the game. Just doing the little things like you're talking about with communication and bringing home team cohesion. That's what a veteran like Luke Goody brings you by being, even though his 3-point shot wasn't falling, even though he wasn't scoring the basketball. He's bringing you other elements of his game and just helping the team get better, even though he wasn't at his at his optimal or what you would consider his primary role to be today.
And here's a live meaningful moment that you're not seeing. It looks like the Culver Military Academy basketball team is out on the court getting a picture taken with Trey Galloway, whose dad, Mark Galloway, is the head coach. And it's nice to see maybe some former teammates. Trey's been out for a while, but where his dad coaches and where he played, they're having a good time here at midcourt as we speak. Coach, what meaningful moments would you like to share?
One was the last IU possession of the first half was a play that we've not seen an IU point guard make in a very long time, or have that ability to make the read and execute it as well as he did. Miles Rice, there's a time's running out. IU is obviously holding for one shot or one. They're not going to do the two. They weren't able to do 2 for 1, but they were going to get a good quality look. And he comes off of a Renew ball screen, gets it to the top of the key, and immediately realizes everyone's sagged off because they figure, well, it's IU. They're either going to hit Renew, they're going to try and force it there, or he's going to try and force it down our throats. And he just calmly pulled back, stepped out, and just drilled a 3-point shot right from the top of the key. And that was the sort of read and the sort of play we haven't seen probably since Yogi Ferrell, honestly. And that's not a knock on any of the guys before. But it's, just being able to execute it as fundamentally flawlessly as he did is a good sign for this program. Because now when you look on that, when the coaches are looking at synergy, they're like, we got to have one more thing we got to prepare for. We can no longer play IU with 3 guys with a foot or 2 feet in the lane. We're going to have to get out on them, and that's going to open up the rest of their offense. So thought that was critical.
Absolutely. And one, it's a big play to go up 11 at half too. I think we gave up a layup, if I remember right, maybe at the end, kind of killed momentum here. So that put us up 13 at that point, and then unfortunately we gave up a basket there at the end. But this was the Miles Rice that we saw at Tennessee, and he, for whatever reason, didn't have that level of production in the first 2 games. But, man, he had 17 points in the first half, ends up with 23. We'll get into numbers here next, but I thought his overall play was outstanding, and you had a good example of that right there.
Another one was a coaching moment, and I don't think you would have seen it because you're, even though you're across the benches, it was kind of hard to see this, but the 4:31 mark, Bryson Tucker gets the ball wide open on I believe it was the left wing, and he kind of fumbles that step and drive. And we all know it's like when you are elevating your game to the next level, your footwork has to take, it takes a minute for the footwork to catch up to what the body wants to do because you're going at a much faster pace.
Right.
And it was a mess up. It was a screw up. It's a freshman. It's just a mistake. It was a dead ball traveler. It was wide open even for the drive, but he was wide open on that area. And you see him running down the floor, and they pan to Woodson, and you can hear him mouthing, "Shoot the ball." And at this point, that there's a moment where you're like, okay, so we know what they're emphasizing. If you're wide open in that position, and you talk about players when they catch the ball, it's about a 0.5 second decision. You make that decision and be decisive. And your first decision, you're never more open than when you catch the ball, as Jay Wright would say. He's wide open, shoot the darn thing. And if you miss it, you've got Omar Ballo underneath who can basically just like scrape up offensive rebounds. Mbako can scrape him up when he's in, Renew. You've got the people to get that offensive board. Just don't question yourself. Don't think the game too much. You're open, drill the thing. And if you can't drill it, hey, it was a good look. Move on.
You took the Jay Wright quote right out of my mouth. I was going to say that you're most open. I know you and I both have used that with our squads before.
Oh, we have.
But I also used to share with players, think shot first, then look into the post and then drive in that order. We want you to be aggressive if you're going to be an effective offensive player.
It was the genesis of free flow motion offense, which was Bob Knight and Dean Smith at the same time found out that their guys and their systems were literally looking off wide open drives and shots because they were trying to run a system. And he's like, they're like, this is madness. We need to get this to a point where we can actually, and so it's for, from a non, from a modern, even modern 50 years ago standpoint. And that's okay. I mean, I guess you'd rather see more caution at times. There are times where you want more caution, but there's also times where there's always a fine line where you're right in that bull, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So I don't know, I have the exact time, but Tucker did let one fly that was somewhat very guarded and contested. So maybe that was after that. He said,
after that one.
But Tucker's a bucket getter, man. I really like him a lot. I like the way I like his body. Like he comes out and he plays in a stance, and that is so. That's just one of my key things. You can play in a stance offensively, you can play in a stance defensively, and as a freshman, like he understands that. Now he might not understand what that you got two hands right in your face and you got other players pass that ball up, but you kind of want that aggressiveness, as you mentioned earlier. So I really like Tucker. I think he's going to impact a lot of games. Very smooth, very smooth. He just looks like that prototypical college player that we watch when we turn on ESPN and those games across the country. He just looks like he fits in, and I'm glad he's an Indiana Hoosier. But, Coach, it's time to go inside the numbers, and this segment is brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding area and want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team here in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-334 or visiting jacksonhewitt.com. Coach, in my busy day here, I'm not sure I really studied the stat sheet here. I will tell you, we'll start off with what everyone's concerned in, is that is three-point shooting. Indiana, 8 of 17 for 47.1. And if my quick math is right, at a 33.3% clip of shots taken, which is probably about average, right? It's not necessarily where the top teams shoot as far as volume, but tonight was a good night for the Indiana Hoosiers from range. Your thoughts on their shooting?
33%. It's much closer to the median than you're definitely in that higher. You're more in that high third quartile than you are in that firmly in the bottom fourth quartile. So the volume was good, and I think the shot selection was excellent from out there as well. There weren't too many of what you would call quick transition guys. And let me rephrase that. When they shot it in transition, a couple times I think that they did. They had great clean looks. They got a lot of their looks though off of rotations and off movements. There was one where Galloway just did a great thing. I don't think you've seen him do in a long time or ever. Pass faked, and they were trying to take the one more away. The guy got out of position. He just pulled it back, drained it, and it was just a well-executed three-point shot, the one that he shot during the game. I think Renew coming off of a baseline out of bounds play that was clearly drawn up for him just to get to that spot, get to the corner, hitting that shot gets him going. So it was very much they very much did a great job of getting the ball into positions to score it. And I think there are still some times where I think the coaching staff would like for them to pull the trigger, and they're still thinking drive first, which again, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You like the fact that they're trying to attack a defense, but you also want to make sure they're taking advantage of it at the right times. And this is game 3 out of 30 plus games. So you're going to have stuff that you're going to have good samples or good examples to use in film to be able to use those as teachable moments for those guys to pick up as they move on throughout the season. So yeah, I think the 3-point shooting was phenomenal. But hey, how about the free throw shooting? Did you catch that yet on the stat sheet?
81.8%, Coach.
They shot 20. I think it was 27 out of 27 33, and I mean the one, and there was and of those 6 misses, one is the guy you expect to do that, which is Omer Ballo, who is still shooting his free throws better than he did last season. So that's a huge jump for this program. If they can keep this type of shooting up at that 75% rate, and they had multiple guys shooting free throws today. Also, it wasn't just all concentrated on 1 or 2 players who are so oftentimes in the last few years have been your worst shooters, and that goes back even back well below before Mike Woodson took the helm.
Here's some deep level stats. Indiana had 8 players play today. 7 of them got steals.
Yep.
And there was a tie for the lead, a 7-way tie.
That's
Seven
awesome.
players each got one steal. As I'm looking at the sheet right now, and the other thing that stands out to me stat wise is Balo. I thought this was his best game. I know he only scored 7 points, but 13 rebounds, 6 blocks. And he got a steal in there. I thought he was active, and I thought at times in the first 2 games he wasn't as active as maybe Coach Woodson would want him to be. I thought tonight when he played, he was very, very active on both ends. Your thoughts on Balo?
I agree. It's in the modern game where the big man is able to just, again, completely disrupt the other team as they're going into the paint and attacking the lane, which he was able to do throughout the contest, was essential. I also think his physicality. He got scored on a couple times late. That's fine because we were getting it back on the other end. But he's making Pringle in that case work for it. I'll guarantee you, Lamont Paris's decision making when he had his hierarchy of what he wanted to do, getting Pringle in the post was not highest on his list. It was very much one of those things where that was something where it's like if he's got to rely on that, then I think IU's been very successful in a game planning situation to get South Carolina out of what they actually wanted to do offensively. And Balo was able to handle it a great deal. I mean, there were several times where he'd get a defensive rebound, run the floor, and get the offensive rebound, and continue just to, that motor is improving. And big men are weird, as we both know, as we all know. Big men are kind of weird, getting a motor up, because big men are not used to playing hard as they're moving up through the systems, because they can oftentimes rely on their size. And you're seeing a guy who's in his 5th year. He's he's at a point in his career where he's now figuring out where, okay, for me to go to the next level, whether it's G League, international, or potentially the NBA, how he's going to have to play and be more active defensively, and also in games where he's not getting a lot of shot looks, to be able just to go and clean up the glass, disrupt the other team's offense, set great screens, I might add, move and pressure defense by moving without the ball off of those actions, and just do those little things that you expect a guy to do. And when the other teams finally decide to play off of him, that's when he's going to get open and he's going to get those looks, and he'll have a 20-point game coming here fairly soon.
Just a few more stats, and I want to get your opinion on a couple other players here. But there were 5 scorers in double figures with Galloway off the bench, 11. And we just talked about Balo, who was not one of those in double figures, but had 13 rebounds and those 6 blocks and contributed on that end as well. But I'd like to talk a little bit about Mbako, who I think didn't stand out today as being the heads up best player, but he was really good. He got Indiana off to a great start. He ends up with 17 points. And here's the thing I like the most: 7 rebounds. Indiana is going to have to rebound, especially when they go to the Bahamas, when they get into Big Ten play. That's been a concern defensively and offensively for those rebounds. And I thought Mackenzie Mbako, again, did a lot of things that don't show up on stat sheets while he was getting his 17. Your thoughts on Mbako today?
What I'm loving about Mbako right now is how he's doing much better moving without the basketball. And I think it's always a concern with any guy, with players as they're going into their sophomore year, players coming, who've come out of areas where they've been able to pretty much get what they wanted over the course of their entire careers, struggle through their freshman year, sometimes with some of those nuances where they're not used to being with the basketball the whole time. He's making good reads. He's making great cuts. His driving has improved immensely. Defensively, he's improving as well. I think a lot, there are times where he's now learning how to leverage his size on closeouts. So as he's closing out, instead of trying to get up in a guy, he's able to utilize that height of his, that length of his, to be able to disrupt a shooter or disrupt someone trying to drive the ball, and just forcing them to make a mistake.
Sorry, I'm doing my best Ryan Phillips here and interrupting you.
No, you go ahead, man.
There was a time he was 3/4 court pickup, and he was into the ball handler 3/4, and the guy turned 2 or 3 times. The crowd erupted. Mbako was in a stance and making someone just miserable with the ball, and the crowd just gave kudos to him out loud. It was a great moment.
Sorry,
I interrupted.
No, it's great, because that's the player growth that we're talking about here, where he's making a sophomore jump, in a way that, let's credit Jared Morris for calling this guy what he was going to, what his preseason predictions about Mbako being the guy that he's becoming, because it wasn't a standout game, but that's what you need from a primary scorer. Is he found a way to put up 17 and doing it efficiently, especially in a game where the other two guys that have been the last two games been their primary scorers really were being not taken out of the game, but were definitely adjusted to the point where he needed to, do what he does and then allow the guards to be able to do what they do. And that was, I think, a big step for Mbako, today, just doing those things.
Yeah. And last, I'd like to get your opinion on Carlisle. He had 12 points, 5 of 9 shooting, 2 of 5 from the three-point line, 40%. We'll take that every day. He had a couple assists, key, no turnovers, a block, and a steal. By far, I think Kanan's best game as an Indiana Hoosier.
I would agree. And he just adds another element to this team that I don't think, again, we've seen in a while, where you just have another guard who can not only just shoot the ball well, and he did that today, but also attack the lane with the acumen that he has. And I do think, I think that as this goes on, one of the issues I think, that IU can continue to build on is you now have two guys who can space the floor, not just from a shooter standpoint, but from a driving standpoint. And what that does is it forces defenses to think twice about helping. It definitely messes with help schemes. And now they have to play whack-a-mole. Are we gonna leave Ballo in a dunker spot with Renew and Carlisle in two-man game with Mbako and Rice spaced out? Or are we going to kind of push that guy on the top side help and hope we can recover fast enough for a Carlisle who, if we overclose, he can drive the lane and find easy looks? That just makes your offense function much more smoothly, much more fluidly, and allows you to not have to win matchups every time you're in a half-court possession.
Yeah, he just played with a lot of passion today, and
did.
I know that they got that technical, but he got hit first, and he wasn't going to back down from anybody.
No,
those are the kind you kind of want him to show a little restraint, but you're kind of happy that he didn't back down. What that young man shows me so far is that he really cares and wants to be good, and he was just trying to find his way offensively. He did. I thought he took one quick three today, but he let the game come to him for the most part today, and that's a plus.
Well, and we ask ourselves, and again, we look at other programs, and I think I'll ask you the question, because I know where I think I stand on this, and I'm becoming more, I don't know, free-flowing as I get older. Maybe I'm more tolerant, temperament. Don't ask
just
my
like
kid
your
today.
hair.
Just like my hair, it's receding. Yeah, my control freak is receding. But wouldn't we rather see IU playing maybe a little more fluidly? And so you may get a quick three here, but it's better than seeing some of the things we saw. And it goes back 20 plus years where it's been overly rigid and overly scripted almost.
I'm a firm believer you have to take some bad shots in the scope of a game, because if you're taking bad shots, you're not passing them up, and you can't make shots unless you take shots. And I'd much rather be in film and say, hey, you could have shot faked here, dribbled to the side, or you should have driven this one here after the fact. I made a change too, Coach, after my son played at AAU and the free-flowing of AAU, whether you like it or not. And he was a shooter, and his AAU coach said, if you get one step across half court and you feel you're open, let it fly. And I saw his confidence go up. And I always thought, and when I went back as an assistant after that, and if I ever was a head coach, I'd turn the kids loose a lot more offensively. And I make them bow down to whatever we were doing defensively. But they have a little more freedom on the offensive end, because I think it's much harder to put that ball in the basket if you're tense or trying to run patterns or trying to run an offense as opposed to play offense. Now, that doesn't mean I want guys just jacking stuff up when there's a guy in their face or whatever else. But I think I'd rather have a fast pace and maybe take some questionable shots and tone that back than having to try and encourage kids. One of my favorite players I had to make run because he wouldn't shoot the basketball. And so I do agree that Indiana, and I just think basketball's better played when it flows. And coaches can have different pace. Pace is an interesting conversation, and one I think we're going to have down the road here.
We are going to be having it, yes.
Yeah, so you can still play with great pace in the half court and not be a fast break team, but I do think you need to have freedom to shoot the basketball. Coach, I got a couple other things. 8 turnovers in the second half, 11 for IU for the game, which is acceptable. 8 for a half, kind of kept South Carolina in it. I know that's been, Coach Woodson's concern. So, again, he'll probably nitpick on that. You win by 16 against an SEC team, it's a good night. But that's one of the stats that I think he'll look upon, and you want to keep people humble and hungry. They got a little sloppy in that second half with 8 turnovers, and the other was fouling. I thought Indiana allowed South Carolina to stick around, close it back to 8. South Carolina took 19 free throws in the second half. And those are just a couple things that you and I are coaches. You never play perfectly. You're happy with this team. You're happy with the way they played. But you're going to find a couple things that you need to kind of pinpoint in the film. Your thoughts on either the turnovers in the second half or the fouling in the second half?
They got more aggressive in trying to get the ball inside versus settling for threes. So I think that put pressure on IU's defense. I think that explains some of the fouling. I think the turnovers, it was sloppy. I know the worst place to be in the world of basketball is up 12 at half, because they're within your opponent's within striking distance, and your guys are feeling like, we got this. I mean, even if you emphasize the point in the locker room, or you're having the conversation and in your halftime of your adjustments, you're still battling a little bit of complacency, and especially when you push it up to 18 a little bit, the intensity drops off a little, the fouling starts, turnovers, you get a little more sloppy, maybe a little sloppier in those areas. And plus the other team's adjusting too, so you're trying to figure out what their adjustments are. Offensive rebounds, I think, would be kind of in the same boat.
Okay.
That IU offensively rebounded, decently, but they also gave up 35% of the rebounds they gave up were offensive boards. And that's also just, an issue, although I think the second chance points were almost a wash. Right. 2 stats I want to throw out real quick before we move on.
Sure.
One is, I thought going in, if they were over 70 possessions, IU was going to win by double digits. I said that to a couple friends of mine before. A lot of it just comes down to when you have a team like South Carolina, the Lamont Paris, in the tradition of the Bennetts and Bo Wright and Greg Gard, they're going to try and slow you down and just beat you down. And IU found a way to get the ball out in transition quickly, but just also push the pace of play where they were able to get. And they also did 72 possessions with a couple times where they got them under 5 on the shot clock. I don't think they got a shot clock violation, but they came darn close and really just got some turnovers late in the shot clock. So they're playing offensively, they're playing fast, and defensively they were making them bleed down. Because the longer you go into shot clock, I think the more, the less efficient you get.
And that was that great ball pressure that we saw.
Yeah.
Most of the game, right?
You're forcing
it just takes people out of what they want to do.
Right. You're putting the ball in places they don't want to put it because you're putting the pressure on them. They scored 1.21 points per possession per KenPom. That's a great offensive performance for this team, for any team really, especially when you're playing another Power 5 opponent. They held them to under 1 point per possession. So you have these statistical things that, the metrics things that we talk about so much were things that they hit today. In addition to, it wasn't a perfect game by any stretch. You never have a perfect game, but it's a solid showing. Game 3 against your first Power 5 opponent in a real setting that's not an exhibition. You'll take this day. You'll take the day.
Absolutely. Well, that'll do it for our segment 2. So coming up on Assembly Call, we hand out our game balls and Hoosier Hustle Award. Maybe discuss a lingering question or two and look ahead to Indiana's upcoming opponent. That's all next here on the Assembly Call, so stick with us.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Coach Tonsoni here with Coach Moats. We're breaking down Indiana's 87-71 victory over South Carolina. And now it's time for our game balls presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. They want to help you protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. Voted Best of B-Town in basement services for 4 years running, their basement waterproofing and crawlspace encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention Assembly Call and get 10% off your system. Call today for a free estimate, or if you want to hear Allie talk about football and Kurt Signetti, she'll go on for more than an hour. But learn more at www.bloomenviro.com. All right, Coach, who gets your game ball?
Miles Rice. I think he was the main difference maker, both statistically and setting the tone on both ends of the floor. I don't have the stat. I mean, from a stat line standpoint, hit threes, made layups when they needed a big play. He came up with the big play when they needed the big play, and just that leadership with playing acumen was exactly what IU needed today to get a double digit victory. But it's exciting to see him seeing him come into his own. So it just felt like he had a great game.
23 points, 7 of 10 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, 6 of 6 from the free throw line, 1 offensive rebound, 3 defensive rebounds for a total of 4, 3 assists, 3 turnovers, a steal in 37 minutes plus 20. I thought he played with great poise today. I thought he played a little fast in his first 2 games, and sometimes you'll have that with point guards. I thought he played with appropriate quickness today, in pushing the pace and coming off the ball screen, making excellent reads. Miles Rice gets my game ball as well, as he now has 2 on the season. Congratulations, Miles Rice, for an incredible game today from you. All right, now it's time for our Hoosier Hustle Award.
The Hoosier Real Hustle Award.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, and it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award. But first, I have some exciting news to share about our friends at Evansville Security Services. They've been acquired. They are now part of the team at Security Pro 24/7, which provides trusted and reliable security for your event or business, from Bloomington, my hometown, to Evansville, where Coach Calvert Chaney grew up, and everything in between. Just like hustle can't be measured by stats, prevention can't be measured either, but it has a huge impact on your bottom line and peace of mind. So let the security pros at Security Pro 24/7 help you prevent a bad outcome today. Visit securitypro247.com to learn more. That's securitypro247.com. And tell them Anthony Leal sent you.
Coach, this one isn't an easy one. I've looked at the roster, the stats, and my notes, and I'm not sure where I'm going, so we're going to you first.
Trey Galloway. I'm just going to go with Trey because not a great offensive start. I mean, I think they had 2 bench points to start the game and in the first half. But he came in, and especially down the stretch, just making hustle plays. There was one where he gets fouled, hits both free throws, goes to the other end, basically kills the possession, gets the steal, comes back, and just those fifth-year senior things, those smart, heady plays we've always loved about Trey Galloway. He made them, even though it was not a game where he scores 20 points and like not like the Kansas game last year where he just set the place on fire. Made smart plays throughout the game, set his guys up, took advantage of opportunities when they were available. There was one where he just drove. I think he rejected the ball screen. It was an empty side action. Rejects the screen. Balo is rolling bucket, and he gets it. He throws up the floater. He misses it, but Balo was in perfect position. And then he got the rebound, was fouled on the floor. Okay, Balo missed the free throw, but that's the sort of stuff that you need from a 6-man coming off the bench who can make that type of play in that type of situation when IU needs to make the right play. He's always there to do it. On the floor, when the ball's there, just hustling. And really, I think just set again. It's just you don't feel any sort of sense of dread when you see him at the scorer's table. I'll put it that way.
I think Indiana is really good when Trey's on the floor. I think there's other combinations that have been really good too, but a veteran player who knows how to play, and his passing was on point today. He didn't get the incredibly large number of assists that he got in the first 2 games, but you could tell that he made a bounce pass into the post that was just incredible. A wrap around with a little spin on it that led to 2 free throws, I believe. Trey Galloway gets my Hustle Award too. So, one, great minds, great, you and I, and great hairlines. I guess we have a lot in common, but Trey Galloway has now won 3 Hoosier Hustle Awards and continues to come back and increase his minutes. He had 22 minutes tonight after off-season knee surgery. We look for those numbers to continue more. So congratulations on Trey on receiving our Hoosier Hustle Award. Now it's time for a lingering question. I'm going to throw this to you, Coach, just as kind of a philosophy statement. I liked the 8-man rotation today that Coach Woodson, and I know that in the past everyone's talked about, the 5-man sub rotation and this or that. I think I enjoy seeing an 8-man rotation. I believe you might need to throw in a 9th man for a little bit of minutes at some point, and that might be Gabe Cupps, who did not see the floor today. Right. But I thought it was an effective use of subbing and rotation today from Coach Woodson. The concern that you could have, and I know Ryan Phillips would bring this up, is Rice plays 37 minutes. Is that too many as you go down to game 15 and 20 and 25 playing those types of minutes? But as a coach, you want your best players out on the floor, and if the other players need to keep competing and be ready when their time's called. I like an 8-man rotation. I thought it was very effective today. I do worry a little bit about the minutes, though. Your thoughts?
Give me 10 seconds here, because I think I'm gonna look up Tristan Newton just briefly, and I'm going to give kind of an example of Newton. When they played Indiana last year, he played 34 minutes when they played Indiana in New York. I think when you look at the NBA, 82 games with a 4 million game preseason, and then the summer league, and then all that, the load management question becomes, and that's kind of an inside joke between IU fans about load management, but I think that gets to be an overblown concern sometimes, and I'm not, I that's how I look at it at this level of play. He'll be off when he needs to be off, and I think there will be times where he's going to get in foul trouble, for example, or there's going to be a better matchup with Carlisle and Galloway in the game at the same time versus him. There may be some situations like that. I think for your point guard, you're going to need them, especially a point guard with the skill that Miles Rice has. You're going to need him 30-plus minutes a game. I guess Cupps today was injured. I think he was on the questionable list, so I don't think it was a coach's decision. I think it was more a training decision.
Okay, I did not see that.
I had heard that. I don't know, and if that's inaccurate, I apologize. But I saw that in the Discord, and I think that him, Leal, and Newton were all through on that sort of no, you can't put them in the list. So that's one where, and again in the game, as they go through more of the bye games before Atlantis and after, before the Big Ten season really gets going, seeing if we can get some more serviceable minutes out of a secondary point guard, that sort of secondary lead with Cupps is essential. But I'm not overly concerned about minutes load. I would say I'm probably more concerned when you look at, I was telling on TV, Balo was gassed at times. Like that guy was it was like he just needed, because they were going up and down the floor so much. I think there were times where he just needed a blow. And even when we got into foul trouble, he was able to finish out the game for IU. That's the sort of thing with a big guy. He's a guy that's used to playing 20 to 25 minutes a game. It's going to be interesting to see you down the stretch. I think he was over 30 today. So it'll be interesting to see him, see if that kind of that continues. Because I think the lingering question, I agree in the lingering question that where are we with minutes distribution and how is that going to play out over the course of the season?
But man, the 8-man rotation, I don't dislike it at all. I don't dislike it at all, right? I like it.
Well, when you look at successful teams in college basketball now, most of them are running those short rotations of 8, 9 guys. And more 8 than 9, I think. And that's one of those deals where I understand there's multiple ways of looking at this where you want a second unit to try to see who's going to step up. I understand making a case for that. I think there's always multiple cases and multiple rationales of why a coach does something. But I think that an 8-man rotation as they go further, and I think I mentioned this in the Discord I think this is the Atlantis rotation. You may see a little bit of Gabe Cups, but I think you're going to see these 9 guys in 5 possession either way type games where you're in that 10 to 12, unless it gets to be a blowout, you're going to see this rotation through the Thanksgiving holiday. Just because I think that they're at that point where they need to get these guys playing together.
And upcoming next for your Indiana Hoosiers is Thursday night against UNC Greensboro. This is the point where Andy Bottoms or Jared, who's actually done some research on UNC Greensboro, would give our listeners a little bit of preview of where they are in Torvik and KenPom. But you're not going to get it tonight because I am at Assembly Hall, and I do have KenPom open, but I'm afraid to open too many tabs or maybe hit the wrong button and shut off the show. But anyway, Thursday night, UNC Greensboro. A traditional good mid-level program. I don't know what they're doing this year, but another tune-up to fix whatever Woodson wants to fix now and get ready to travel to Atlantis or for the Atlantis tournament, which starts Wednesday, November 27th. I believe that's a noon game against Louisville. And that's what you want. You want to get better. You want to get on film those things that you can work on. And Indiana, I think, has made progress, Coach, every 3 games. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU. Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, no. Just real quick. UNC Greensboro is 171 KenPom currently.
There you go.
They're 2-1. They lost to SMU at an away game by 13. So that's been their, they've been kind of, so that's where they've been. They're going to be that good mid-level. Won't be a B opponent, but will definitely not be a 300 plus. I think IU's predicted to win by, I think, 17. So that should be a game where IU should come out and just really, if they can get it up there, can again have another good resume building type win.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU post-game show. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel with the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Okay, Coach, it's time for us to end the show and me to go to Buffalo's and then go home, I think, is going to maybe be what I do tonight. But your last call on Indiana's 87-71 victory over South Carolina.
Solid team win. We got a lot. We have a lot to really kind of just, as we look back on this, say some questions. I wouldn't say the questions are never fully answered, but you at least have a hint as to where this thing could be going, and that just really excited to see IU play the way that they played today, with the energy they brought, and with the style of play that they brought to this game in particular. It's also nice really to see IU set the tone and play the game they wanted to play versus being reactive to an opponent's tone. And I think early on, especially with a team that's just beginning to come together, and again, you can make the case for South Carolina, though they're kind of in the same boat, but they were able to basically seize the tone and tenor of the game and make them respond to IU versus IU having to respond to them.
Very good. I think my word today is consistency. We've talked a lot about it in the shows and postseason or preseason. Can this team be consistent? And I thought today was their most consistent effort of the year. Got out to a big start. Good to see focus at the start in building the 17-4 lead. And I look forward to seeing what they got against UNC Greensboro. And then I have Wednesday off before Thanksgiving, so it'd be nice to wake up, have a little breakfast, and watch the Hoosiers defeat the Louisville Cardinals. But that's going to do it for us tonight on the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live, be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Assembly Call. And don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Rigger of Rig Designs for designing our logo. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU Hoops again with you on Thursday after the UNC Greensboro game. Until then,
take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Hey, the show's over.
Here I come, Coach Tonsoni.
Sorry, Aim. I'm 2 hours away. You're gonna have to.
Hey, I have to give you
have to wait, sweetheart.
my friend. That drive from Indy though to Kokomo is a hell of a lot better than it used to be.
Oh yeah,
isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but I don't. I come out of Lafayette, but even
Lafayette. Okay, so you're. Oh man, yeah, they torn that to whole hell.
Yeah, but it's still pretty good. Now they got 3 lanes shut down on 465 again.
Yeah.
But no, it's. I got here an hour and 50 minutes with some lane restrictions, and once that all gets done, I have one. I think I have 2 stoplights getting on 65 in Lafayette until I pull into town here. So it's pretty nice.
Well,
but that drive from north too is that drive north isn't bad either. Yeah,
No.
I'm going to have to get. I think I kind of want to get home, but I kind of am hungry, Bob. So
I understand.
That's my lingering question. My actual lingering question is: do I go there? Do I go to Pizza X, grab a pizza? Do I bring Mother Bears home to Amy? I got some issues here as we end the show.
You understand that Mother Bears now? We have one now in Columbus, right?
Oh, I did not know that.
They have
That's great.
So 2 things: IU Columbus men's basketball, women's basketball are both playing in NAIA, and the place they play has a Mother Bears in it. So we are becoming. We are always Columbus. We'll do what we do, but it's also something where we have a Mother Bears where we can go in. It's just like going to Bloomington, except it's in an old mall. So it's really kind of cool to have. But we're talking a Pizza King somewhere in the area. When we kill this, I'm gonna grab Beth and Bennett. We're gonna find a Pizza King. I think someplace close by.
I think Brian in the chat has the right idea. That I think the Back Home Network needs to provide me with meal money so I can go to Zagreb's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Brian gets the Hoosier Hustle Award for me right there.
Brian gets a game ball. What are you talking about? All of it, all the things.
Heck, I think Connor Hitchcock from Homefield needs to give me something for the two outbuildings I've built with my money that I've sent him.
Loyalty points. So, hey, real quick, I'll say this: X's and Joes. We're going to cut the next episode tomorrow. On coaching regressions and basically our way of doing a preseason episode or an early season episode to talk about current programs, because we don't want to do it like everybody else. We actually want to talk about it with an abstract concept. But we are probably pleased with that. We're going to have you on an episode 22. So the next episode after this one, we've got you and Tony Adrania lined up to talk about tempo and pace of play.
Look forward to it. I told you in the text, I am not an analytics guy where I can pull off numbers off my head. I don't have a subscription to Synergy, but I definitely would use them in my coaching. But I'm looking forward to some interesting discussion on pace of play on both ends. And look forward to being on the X's and Joes.
We're looking forward to having you, friend. We're always great to talk to you.
Good night. Enjoy that Pizza King.
And enjoy wherever you land, my friend.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Not everybody.